Hello and welcome to our third video in our Impossible Lands series, covering all the minis in the collection, and many thanks to WizKids for sending them our way. This box may be my favorite in the set. Masters of Magic gives us minis for some of the most important figures in the entire Pathfinder setting. You get minis of Geb and Nex themselves, the eponymous rulers of their respective ever-warring nations, and you get a mini of the god of magic, Nethys. I'm of the opinion that Pathfinder has a much more interesting and present pantheon than D&D does in 5th edition. Not only that, but who your character worships can have gameplay effects for your character as well, and Pathfinder gives you role-playing advice on how to play devotees of each of the gods and goddesses. For example, if you're a follower of Nethys, the god of magic, you should always be seeking out and using magical power, and you should never pursue a mundane path if a magical one exists. We'll talk more about Nethys in a little bit, but we'll also be chatting with Paizo's mini-master, Mark Moreland. How's that for alliteration? At the end of the video here to get more insights into the mini making process. So for now, sit back and let the Masters of Magic show you the path. If you'd like to bring a little extra magic into your 5e games, look no further than the Fablemaker's animated tarot cards from our sponsor Hit Point Press. This gorgeous deck of animated tarot cards comes with a book that will teach you how to use tarot cards in your everyday life, and you can also bundle it with the Fablemaker's guidebook to learn how to use the deck, or any tarot deck really, in your 5e games to do everything from generating NPCs and backstories, to determining NPC actions, to enhancing classes and spells, and so much more. It is another beautiful way to add a little mystery and magic to your 5e games to make sure your players at your table have an unforgettable and surprising experience. Learn more and pick up your set today at the links in the doohickey down below the video, or visit animatedtarot.com. Alkenstar isn't the only city located between the warring nations of Geb and Nex. The dwarves also long ago founded the sky citadel known as Dongan's Hold, which is where black powder was originally discovered. Now allied with Alkenstar, Dongan's Hold is ruled over by High King Aronak here. Aronak is the one who originally gave human Ansel Alkenstar the secret for creating firearms. The ruler and founder of the nation of Geb is the infamous necromancer Geb. The land of Geb used to be part of ancient Assyrian, a land based on Egyptian culture mythology. Geb, the person, was an exiled Osiriani necromancer. The land was relatively peaceful until the cataclysmic war with Nex, in which Geb used his necromantic powers to suck the life from his own lands, to defeat his foe, and then raise the casualties as an undead army. Now a ghost himself, Geb is still seeking vengeance against his arch-rival Nex, if only he could find him. One of the most powerful wizards who ever lived, Nex met his match in the necromancer Geb. Rather than suffer defeat, he created his own worlds, demi-planes to which he could escape. As far as anyone knows, Nex still resides in one of those demi-planes, plotting his return to power and his vengeance against Geb. His powerful presence, though, continues to be felt across his namesake nation. You can read more about Geb, Nex, and Anang Aronak in the Lost Omens Legends book. The last set we reviewed, Heroes and Villains, included several Geniekin, folks who have an elemental heritage. Namely, we got Geniekin minis for Earth and Fire Elementals and Jan. This set adds our Fire Elemental Geniekin, the Ifrit, based on the art from the Ifrit Pyrochemist, an alchemist with a propensity for fire, as you might have guessed. To make your own Ifrit PC, you'll want the Lost Omens Ancestry Guide and the Impossible Lands book here, which gives you expanded ancestry feats. The Pyrochemist is a level 1 creature. Interestingly, the only mini we didn't get in the Impossible Lands mini collection from the Geniekin section of Bestiary 2 was the Undine Hydromancer. The imposing Japalisura here is a type of creature known as an Asura. The Asura are fiends who were first spawned as physical manifestations of divine accidents, since the Pathfinder gods and goddesses are anything but infallible. The Asura love nothing more than destroying anything with even a hint of the divine. The Japalisura here are manipulators and gaslighters who arose from the remains of 3 demigod archers. Their faces are forever shifting, and with a level 12 stat block, they're a formidable foe armed with divine spells and infinite arrows. The Paaridar are monks who sought to transcend their humanoid forms by drawing power from other creatures, which transforms their ki and their body. Of course, this practice is considered profane by most. The level 7 Manticore Paaridar here combines the skills of a monk, including the ability to deliver a flurry of blows and cast certain monk spells, with a Manticore's ability to fly and attack with its claws, jaw, and projectile spikes. Bestiary 3 gives us some instructions for creating other Paaridar stat blocks of your own. One of my favorite things about the Pathfinder Battles line is that we almost always get at least one mini of a Pathfinder deity, and this time it's Nethys, god of magic. Nethys was once a god king in ancient Assyrian who shattered his mind from an overload of knowledge. Think the total perspective vortex from the Hitchhiker's Guide. He ascended to true godhood, but with a split soul, one bent on destruction and one on protection. Be sure to pick up the Gods and Magic Pathfinder book, which is one of my favorites, to learn more about Nethys and the other Pathfinder deities. Finally, we get a Rakshasa Maharaja, and yes, his thumbs are appropriately backwards. Rakshasas are evil fiends who disguise their appearances to walk among humanoids and corrupt their society from within, reincarnating after death. This mini here is nuts. It's based on the artwork here from Bestiary 3. Maharajas are the most powerful form of Rakshasa, and yes, they have multiple heads, which allow them to cast multiple spells a turn and bite a bunch of people at once. They have a level 20 stat block, absolutely loaded up with spells. And now that you've seen the minis, let's check in with our mini maestro Mark Moreland to learn even more. Mark, thank you for joining us again.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So today we're talking about Masters of Magic, and this set includes some of the biggest personalities on or surrounding Galarian. You have Geb and Nex themselves. You have Nethys. What is the process like for trying to create minis for these characters who are so iconic and important?
Yeah, so as I've said in a previous discussion we had, this was originally going to be a blind booster-based set, like our previous Pathfinder Battles releases, but that had to change while this was in process. So these were already slotted in as rare, unique figures that someone buying a case would be likely to get one of. And the easiest way to ensure that you're getting the biggest bang for your buck with those single figures is to do a unique character. And so we have a long tradition of including the Pathfinder gods in sets. In this case, Nethys made the most sense because magic is such a huge theme in this region of the world. This is really our high magic area where you have floating cities and you know, everyone is a spellcaster except for those people in between the two spellcaster lands, and everyone there has a gun. So you know, this is the place where we have our really wild Wahoo fantasy, and so Nethys made a lot of sense to put in there. If we did an Impossible Land set and didn't include Geb and Nex, what even are we doing? You know, so like some of these just felt like no-brainers for us, and so it's always cool to see these figures actually cast in plastic. For those of us here at Paizo, some of these characters are you know, figures from people's homebrews that they ran 20, 30 years ago, before Pathfinder was even a thing, that have all sort of been ported into the shared setting. And so for someone like Eric Mona, who invented Geb and Nex, it's always really gratifying to see one of your characters show up in plastic. And so that's always a fun thing for us to do when we have the opportunity.
I hadn't even considered that. That's amazing. I know that we're going to try to bring Eric in to talk about Bestiary Unleashed when we do that full set release, because we're we're still a little behind here over the summer, having all the travel that we did. But I wanted to ask you, and I think a lot of people are very curious about this, is what is just the process like for putting together a booster set? You know, this one started as a booster set, so what does that process look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, initially, and we start usually somewhere between 18 and 15 months out from when a set is scheduled to release. It usually starts with WizKids saying, "Hey, it's time for us to start planning for Pathfinder Battles set 20, whatever number we're on now. And then we talk about, okay, it's scheduled to come out around, in this case, Q3 or Q4 2022. We look at the schedule, we see what else is coming around that time and say, what are our big tentpole products that it makes sense for us to support at this time? Then they will send a blank spreadsheet over that basically lists out, you have 12 slots for commons, you have 12 slots for uncommons, you have 12 slots for, medium or large rares, and this many huges, and then usually but sometimes Eric, sometimes others in the department will go in and just start filling stuff in. We'll often have all of our books spread out on our desks, paging through, looking for cool reference art that we can send to WizKids to actually sculpt the minis from. And then we go back and forth with them. Sometimes they'll say, I think that needs to be a rare, or that's probably not so complex that it can't be an uncommon, and vice versa. And we just sort of fine tune it from there. Then usually between 12 to 9 months before the set comes out, we've got a lot of back and forth emails. They're sending digital renders of the sculpts and painting guides to me. I'm checking those against the reference, making sure that they're on model, and working on, that should be a darker blue, or can we do we think we can get an extra, dry brush step on this one, because I'm afraid we're going to lose detail, and that sort of back and forth. And then once we've approved those, they all go to the factory. We don't see them again for months until we're approving paint masters, and they're sending me photos from the factory floor. And then we do a similar process with the packaging, and that's about it. So, it's a long process, but there's a lot of collaboration, and it's one of the more gratifying parts of my job, which is saying something, because there's a lot that we do here that's a lot of fun, and getting to choose what figures are actually going to be manifested in physical form on, tens of thousands of players' tables around the world, is one of the really cool things.
Is there any particular creature or mini that was so complex that either they weren't able to construct a mini that met your satisfaction, or that did, and that you were very proud of, that you were able to get done? Anything come to mind?
I think generally the figure I'm probably most proud of is the Minkari, that gigantic. I mean, it's as tall as my kid, and it that's one of those figures that we said a decade ago, man, it sure would be cool to get a mini of Minkari, but that'll never happen. He's just got to be too big. And then when we had the opportunity to do it, and it came out and looks that great, it was just one of those moments of okay, bucket list item checked off to 100% satisfaction. That was one of the really gratifying moments in terms of when it all came together and just worked perfectly. In terms of figures that we've had to can, we had, I think it was in the Kingmaker set, but this was back when we were doing the randomized set dressings, where each set would have maybe half a dozen additional figures that weren't part of the traditional set list that you would just find in a booster. And we wanted to do a gnarly old tree, and a tree mini, it turns out, with branches that stick out every direction and curve and twist. They came back to us and they were just nope, no. That mini was going to be so many pieces of tooling at the factory for something that didn't even have a base, that they were just this is way beyond scope. No, we're killing the tree. So there's no tree like that. And I think it was actually the same set, was supposed to be an Anku, which is it almost looks like if you've seen the Disney movie Fantasia, and you've got the big devil who like is the top of Bald Mountain, it almost looks like that, but it's a fey creature and smaller, but super detailed. We did one of those, and it's supposed to be large, I believe, but on the large end of large. And that was another one that we sculpted. It looked great, but it just took too much tooling to be able to do it right and at the scale that they needed to be able to do to slot it in with all the other figures in a set. So that one we said, well, maybe we'll find a place for it in the future. Maybe we will. It's been like 5 years since then, so maybe not, but we'll see. Those are the two that come to mind. But for the most part, it's WizKids saying, you guys are asking too much, or this particular figure looks awesome, but is just not possible for us to do for a non-premium figure. A premium figure like some of the gargantuan elementals have some of those, like lots of spindly little parts. That's way easier for us to do as a one-off figure that is recouping the cost of those, whereas a random piece of set dressing is not. And so Rip Tree.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think that that would have been the guess of a lot of folks out there, that the Tree Mini was the one that just wasn't able to get done.
And like in retrospect, we should have just said, why are we spending all this time making a tree when we can do something that's unique to our setting? Whereas a leafless tree, you can just go to like a miniature railroad supply store, like a Hobby Town or whatever, and just get a tree from there. They already do that. So you'll live and learn.
That's what I did for a long time, is to get those trees. Now I've got the some Dwarven Forge over there to serve that purpose at a much higher price point. Anything you want to leave us with your Masters of Magic set? Anything jump out at you from that set that you want us to know about?
No, I'm really excited for people to be able to get Nethys. When I first started including gods in the sets, I think I wasn't the first one to do it, because Lamashtu had appeared in. I want to say she was in the Wrath of the Righteous set. So long before I was doing the minis, we were including gods as they made sense, but I've sort of made it my mission to get the core 20 gods represented in plastic. So it's always cool to have an opportunity to do that. I want to get them all and be able to line them all up together in one display, as if I have room for that. But it's the dream. And so getting Nethys in there is cool. And Gebbon Nex, while Nex has disappeared into who knows where, he's still very much on the forefront of people's minds, both in the setting and in Paizo. So you never know when a mini like that could come in handy.
To that end, we also have an Eridan mini, I'm just saying. We got one of those too.
Yeah, but yeah. You have to have one mini to kill.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair. Well, thanks for joining us, Mark. Come on back here in a minute and we'll talk about another one.
All right. Can't wait.
Thank you again to Mark for joining us. We will be seeing more of him very soon. You can pick up Impossible Lands Masters of Magic right now for between $40 and $50. Let me know what you think of it in the comment section down below. And don't forget to check out the animated tarot cards and the Fablemaker's Tarot Guidebook at animatedtarot.com, or use the links below the video here. We've got a ton of videos coming out soon, so don't forget to subscribe to see them all. You can also click that little bell icon down there below me to get notifications when we drop new videos. If you use social media, you can find us here and on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and Mastodon. Until I see you again, stay safe, have fun, love each other, and I will see you next time at the Gallant Goblin.